Blog Talk Radio.
I'm Veronica Miller, production assistant here at Tell Me More, and for Black History Month, I'm paying tribute to a family of Black photographers. Addison Scurlock and his sons, Robert and George, made a business out of photographing Washington, D.C.'s Black society. Their studio opened in 1911, and collectively they captured nearly 100 years of D.C.'s secret city, an educated, affluent, and culturally influential Black middle class. But when the city's race riots broke out in 1968, the mayhem was squared in their camera lenses. Addison, Robert, and George have passed away, but hundreds of thousands of their negatives and photos are preserved in the Smithsonian Institution. My favorite Scurlock image? It's a photo of 6 women at my alma mater, Howard University, sometime in the 1920s. They're at a football game, and they're dressed to the nines. Cloche hats, overcoats with jeweled brooches, and even a fox stole. It shows the importance of the Scurlock's work, leaving to posterity the beauty, dignity, and poise of a vibrant Black society.
That was Veronica Miller, production assistant here at Tell Me More, paying tribute to Black photographers Addison, Robert, and George Scurlock. And that's our program for today. I'm Michelle Martin, and you've been listening to Tell Me More from NPR News. Let's talk more tomorrow.
Good evening. Welcome to another edition of the Bachelor News Radio show on the Bachelor News Radio Network. I'm L.A. Bachelor, your host, of course. It's February 3rd, and, of course, it is Black History Month. And, of course, you know, we celebrate it as much as we can, 24/7, 365. But you'll be hearing a lot more vignettes about history-making people who made a difference in Black history. 646-929-0130, the number to get in touch with us. Press 1 to get on the line. You can hit us up with your comments, questions, and everything else under Pad Nation on Facebook, Pad Nation 2 at Twitter, LinkedIn, and anywhere else you can get your information. And you can always email us to labachelor40@gmail.com. Want to go to the phones and bring in my first guest quickly. He is with America's PAC and America's Majority in Iowa, where the caucuses will be taking place in a matter of hours. He is Tom Donaldson. And Tom, always good to have you on, sir.
Yeah, thank you, L.A. Good to be on.
And I should also say he is the co-host of the Donaldson Files. It airs every Tuesday, Wednesday, 6 p. to 7 p. Eastern, right here on the Bachelor News Radio Network. Tom, you're in Iowa. First off, what are you hearing based on what you know about who's going to win, and kind of break it down and at what order they'll finish, according to what you know?
All right. Okay, I'm going to basically I'm going to say this. Sanders is going to win tonight. The real question, it comes in second, third, and fourth. While most of the polls have Joe Biden coming in the second, I think you're going to see a surprise with Mayor Pete coming in the second, Warren coming in third. And if Biden comes in the fourth, this is going to be a devastating blow to the campaign.
Devastating to what point?
Yeah, well, let me put it this way. First of all, momentum going into New Hampshire. But more importantly, if he finishes third or fourth and he goes into New Hampshire crippled, then that kind of reduces the chance of him winning Nevada. And right now, South Carolina, he is losing ground. Bernie Sanders is actually gaining ground among young black voters in South Carolina in a recent poll. And I've had, I just talked to my brother who lives in South Carolina. He said, he kind of confirmed that a lot of young blacks are looking at Bernie Sanders. So if he doesn't come out well in Iowa and then he loses and then doesn't do well in New Hampshire, I think this kind of cripples the firewall that he needs to win in South Carolina going into Super Tuesday. So I think he's the one that has the most to lose tonight, more than anybody else, if he doesn't finish in second place. If he finishes in second, his campaign will be fine.
You talked about the black vote, in particular South Carolina, but just as a general rule, who needs it the most to even try to get to Super Tuesday? Obviously, the polling shows that a lot of people are saying that women and black women in particular voting is going to help. So who needs it more out of those Democratic candidates to get the black vote?
Well, I'm going to put it this way. Joe Biden needs it the most because that's a good portion of his base in South Carolina. It's off the Obama legacy. He's the VP of the Obama administration. There is kind of I think there's that long-term relationship with black voters in Joe Biden over the years. So he needs it the most. If he starts losing there, he's in trouble. Because if you look at the polls, he does he's basically heading up to the point. He's been head and shoulders among everybody else with black voters. And you got people, quite frankly, who's got some serious problems dealing with, let's say, or having convincing. Mayor Pete, for example, if you go back to, he had his controversy.
Why hasn't Mayor Pete been able to connect with black folks like myself?
Well, I'm going to give you maybe two reasons. One is the unspoken, and I've had blacks tell me this privately. There are a lot of, especially older blacks, who will not be approving of his lifestyle. I mean, they're not going to come out and say it, but I've heard that. I think the second is if you go back to his, city, South Bend, there were two issues. It was noted. There were two things. One, gentrification, which oftentimes hurts black communities. And number two, he had a run-in and basically fired a black police chief over some controversy. And so those are the two, those are some of the things. and again, on the first item, I mean, these are things people are saying to me privately. And, you can, and if you look at it this way, blacks tend to be the most religious of any demographics across the country, bar none. So whether or not
and we're conservative people too, more so than Republicans seem to think and understand. Talking with Tom Donaldson, I won't hold you up, Tom, but so basically, America. I mean, it's not just black people, but America doesn't seem to be ready for a gay president. I mean, let's just keep it real. I'm
going to put it this way. I'm not sure. I think as the campaign goes, I think that'll be less and less of an issue down the road. It could be, and we'll find out. But I do think that the one thing he's got going for him is that he's from the Midwest. And I think he's very cognitive of, okay, we have to get back these people we lost in 2016. And he's a military. I mean, he's got a military, behind him. I mean, a guy went, to the Middle East. So I think those things might help out in that regard. But, you may be right. It's one thing that you don't have to bring in. It's one of those you don't bring up, but it's there in the back of people's minds. And you really can't.
And one of the things that that people I know talk about, and this is a conversation you and I have had on and off the air, was both parties, but in particular because blacks tend to caucus with Democrats, that the vote is being taken for granted. I think Hillary Clinton took the black vote lightly last election, and Joe Biden may still have the lead, but it's saying something about Bernie Sanders starting to gain some ground in that regard. So what who can't take the vote lightly? I guess you would still say Biden, or I mean, in general, nobody should, but who can't afford to do that?
I'm going to say, if I'm running against Biden, I'm starting to make a visit in the black community, because that's your last. I mean, think of it this way: that's his last wall of defense. And if you can crack that wall of defense along with everything else, that kind of ends the campaign of Joe Biden. But it will be kind of interesting with Michael Bloomberg, because if Biden campaign collapses, what are you left with on the so-called moderate wing? Amy Klobuchar, Mayor Pete, and you got the guy who's spending basically $1 billion to get himself elected, sitting in the back.
Right. And Steyer's there, but he's more to the left and centrist.
I'm not talking Steyer.
I know you're talking about Bloomberg. I know. I'm saying and Steyer's there as well, is in terms of spending all this money to stay in there too. Yeah. Make a case for why Iowa and New Hampshire should still be the first two states where people are going to vote. Because, I mean, quite frankly, Tom, you and I have known each other for years. So, it's not a color or race thing, but they're not. These are two states that are predominantly white, to be honest with you. So why Iowa and why New Hampshire first?
It's tradition. Of course, as the Chamber of Commerce of Iowa would tell you, it's a great tourist. but that's not the best reason why to have a caucus. I would tell you the one thing about the Iowa caucus, and it's going to be very interesting, because I guarantee you tonight you're going to see a caucus that'll break the 200,000 mark tonight.
They were saying over 300 probably. I mean, maybe that's out of reach, but.
Well, I mean, that would be, like I said, they had 170,000 in 2016. But you could be, I mean, I'm going to say it's going to go over 200,000. It could be 250. We'll find, and plus the weather is really nice. It's like 30-some degrees. But I'll tell you what Iowa does. It is where people learn how to, it's the grassroots. I mean, you literally have to go and meet and shake people's hands. you see people face to face. This is one of the few states, and New Hampshire is the other, where you're going to actually see people face to face. And they're going to be able to measure you by looking in your eyes. And it's also, this is where you learn how to put an organization together from a political point of view, where you're testing out that get out the vote. And so there are two things that comes from Iowa, and basically the third is tradition. But I think this year, though, it all depends on what happens tonight and in New Hampshire. Because in the past, when candidates have said, we're not going to go to these early states, we're going to wait till, we'll wait till afterwards, like Bloomberg is doing. Usually that's a failure, but this year may be different. So it may not have the impact in that regard. But I should put it this way. The one candidate that will have an impact will be Bernie Sanders. If he wins New Hampshire, he's going to pretty much knock out Elizabeth Warren and have the left side of the equation almost to himself. And when you go into Super,
right, you go to Super Tuesday, yeah. Let me ask you a final question. As objective as you could be, you're a Republican strategist. How much of Iowa is in play? I mean, what if you had to place a bet on who wins it? If Trump or a Democrat, who will win?
I'm going to say Trump will win right now. But I would say it's a 55-45. He has a slight lead. So we'll see, and I think you'll find that in all of the battleground states right now. If you look at Michigan, you look at Wisconsin, it's basically a 50-50 or 55-45. I think Trump has a slight lead in most of these states. And it's, but it does, like I say, let me put it this way, it's a slight lead.
Right. And anything.
It's like a basketball NBA game where you go into the fourth quarter with a 7-point lead. In the NBA, that's not a comfortable lead.
Like San Francisco went to the fourth quarter with a 10-point lead, and then their coach forgot that he was actually a coach and choked, stopped running the ball, which was really stupid. But that's another conversation for another time. Really.
Well, that'll be for tomorrow night's Super Bowl discussion on the Donaldson Files.
Absolutely. Tom, I appreciate you, sir.
Hey, thank you. We'll catch you later.
All right. Tom Donaldson, of course, he is host of the Donaldson Files political show, and there's some other topics he gets into. The show airs every Tuesday and Wednesday, 6 to 7 p.m. Eastern. Take a 30-second break and get back to some more politics. We'll talk with Jim Williams of Apple News, get his thoughts on the impeachment closing, if you will, that fiasco, and what he thinks is going to happen in Iowa and the ramifications moving forward. It's the Bachelor News radio show. Stay tuned.
Dermarest, the psoriasis solution, asks,
what's complete freedom? For me, it's an open road with the top down. It's my bare arms getting warmed by the sun. It's my bare arms without a trace of psoriasis.
Complete freedom, brought to you by the complete relief of Dermarest psoriasis. Unlike brands which only relieve itching and inflammation, Dermarest psoriasis also removes the embarrassing scales, allowing healthy skin to grow.
Healthy skin? That's complete freedom.
Dermarest, the psoriasis solution.
the Bachelor News radio show. LA Bachelor, thanks to Tom Donaldson for coming on. We go back to the phones, bring in my good friend, longtime friend and colleague of Apple News now. He is Jim Williams. And Jim, always good to have you on, my friend.
Hey, it's a pleasure to be here. Sorry, there was some late breaking stuff. Joe Manchin is working on a bill that would censure the president, and he basically thinks that he can get the 4 votes he needs to pull him over to the Republican side so that there would be a censure of the president, not obviously a removal, but at least a censure. And
wow,
if he can pull that off, that would be quite a coup. He's got Lamar Alexander, who is on the record. You got Rubio, who's on the record. You've got Collins and Murkowski, who's on the record, as saying that what the president did is they think he did something, but it didn't rise to the level of
which is really stupid, Jim. It
is
this
insane.
Thing, this thing with Lamar Alexander coming out saying, "I know the president did something inappropriate." No, you might say something inappropriate. He did something wrong. So first of all, second of all, if you're admitting this man did something that rises, that to most people rise to impeachment, obviously in the House and to criminal terms, then why are you going? I know he did, but. You don't get any pass. You're not showing any courage by saying that he did it wrong, but I'm going to vote against evidence coming into play. That's just stupid. And it's worse for him because he's retiring. So what are you worried about? He's got nothing to lose.
Well, here's the other ironic thing, right? He replaced Howard Baker, who was, without question, the lead person and statesman in the Watergate era. It was Howard Baker who uttered the lines that everybody now uses, which is when did the president what did the president know and when did he know it? So you would think with the gravitas of holding that seat that he would do something, but he didn't. But of all people, surprisingly, it's Manchin who basically is playing a game of blind man's bluff here. He's like, okay, you guys went on record saying he did something, wasn't something you liked, wasn't something you could support, but it was something. So how about we just censure him? And so that really throws.
That's breaking news because they're not talking about this anywhere else. I appreciate you bringing that breaking news in there.
I wanted to get it to you as soon as I could. And the funny thing about that, and I'll shut up after this. The funny thing about it is that. My guess, here's where we have to see how it goes. Because if Manchin feels he can get those 51 votes, because for a century you don't have to do 67, you only need to do 51. If he can get those 51 votes, the next thing is, will McConnell let it go? It has to go to the floor. And McConnell can stop it. So
and we know what McConnell, a.k.a. Mr. Magoo, a.k.a. Turkey
the Grim Reaper.
The Grim Reaper, everything else. And Manchin is surprising. But, Manchin's looking at probably what his people in West Virginia want. That's why he's actually acting like a Democrat for a change. I think he's Joe Lieberman. Yeah, he's Joe Lieberman made over again, in my opinion, as it relates to that. But anyway, that's great news. Hopefully he can get it done. But I digress. Iowa in play right now. You came in. I was talking with Tom Donaldson. What are you hearing in terms of who's going to win and who's probably second or third, and who needs to finish 1 or 2?
I think Bernie Sanders, because he has the ground game left over from 2016, has a distinct advantage. Biden inherited Clinton's ground game, and she won barely over over Bernie last time. I think you could make an argument that any one of the 4 main candidates, Sanders, Biden, Warren, or Pete Buttigieg, could craft a way to win tonight. But I think realistically, if Buttigieg finishes fourth, it's going to make it difficult for him to be, riding into New Hampshire where he's not, among the top 2 or 3 there either. That could be very devastating to his situation because it's all about money. And if Biden finishes fourth, well, then that becomes a problem for him because he's literally not going to win in New Hampshire. So the irony of all of this, and we've talked about this many times, is between those 2 states, okay, the electoral votes that they have barely bump to the point of 2% of what it takes to get the nomination. Yet there could be people, there could be carnage all over the place if people do badly. Now, one of the things we can look for tonight is something that's totally different this year, and that is that normally you just get the raw numbers, right? Well, tonight we'll get the first round numbers, and then we'll get the second round numbers. So that's why who's your number 2, your second choice becomes really important. Because if your first choice, let's say you're a Klobuchar person or a Yang person, and you don't get 15% in the caucuses, then you've got a situation where you're a free agent and you can basically go to whomever you want. So who their second choices are becoming increasingly important, especially tonight. But think about this. You're going to go into a room where you're going to listen to people. Each candidate gets a 30-minute, up to 30 minutes for their person to speak on their behalf. And you're literally sitting in a little mini cheering section for your own person. If your own person doesn't meet that 15% requirement, then you're up for grabs. And all of a sudden, you're being lobbied by 3, 4, maybe as many as 5 different people to come over to their side. That can be uncomfortable, it can be daunting, it can be intimidating. If for those of us who normally just go into a voting booth, close the curtain and vote, that's not how it goes there. Everybody in the building knows who you voted for.
Yeah, and I just think, by the way, the caucuses is just prehistoric. I mean, I don't understand why they even still do that. Like you're drawing strings, straw, and who? It's
right.
just really, it's really stupid. And it's not. It really doesn't play into politics. I asked Tom about this, and I'll ask you in terms of 2 points. Why? Again, and I've asked you this before. Mayor Pete still hasn't done well with black and brown people. Is it because of his sexuality, or is it because of the history that he had with the police chief, the he fired, and all? What is it? Why is he not resonating with black folk?
I believe that Pete has spent so much time in Iowa and New Hampshire that he hasn't had enough time to really connect with the black community, because God knows there isn't one in Iowa or New Hampshire. He hasn't had the time to head to South Carolina. He's done some work with Al Sharpton and some other folks who have, set him up in different places to speak to people. I believe that he would have a chance to resonate with, black and Hispanic communities if he got to a point where they could actually see him. He hasn't been to that point yet. So I would say to him, if he can weather the next 2, races, the caucus tonight in New Hampshire, in a week, I think he'll have a chance at resonating. So I would say for him, it's an incomplete. It's not that he doesn't have a message that that resonates with the community. I would also say it's not something that has to do, at this point anyway, with sexuality. But I think at the end of the day, we all think about this, right? These folks have lived in Iowa and New Hampshire because it's so important to them for the past 3 months. And so that really doesn't give you a lot of time to go around and make any policy or substance-based, work within different subsets of the community. So it's a difficult situation. Now, Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren are known quantities, right? And they're not moving the needle either. So if I'm Bernie Sanders, I'd be a hell of a lot more concerned about what was going on or not going on in the black community than I would be Pete Buttigieg.
Well, let me ask you, because, I think one of the other problems is that Pete, they always talk about Joe Biden having gaffes and putting his foot in his mouth. Mayor Pete's been doing that a lot, and there's some racial undertones that I've been hearing in regards to him, as far as saying going back to the heartland. A lot of black people take that as he wants to go to these Iowas and all these other places that don't have a lot of black folks or brown folk to get those votes. I mean, I'm just being really honest about it. So when he says the heartland, when he says stuff like that, it strikes us as he's really only talking to one race.
I get it. Yeah.
And so that, I think that's part of his issue too.
Well, here's the problem. It's your Pete Buttigieg, right? He's fighting, first and foremost, he's fighting Clovershire in the Midwest. In other words, basically, he's saying, if I can't win in the Midwest, where I'm from, right, then how am I going to win, in states where, I'm not a Midwestern. I mean, he was born and raised in Indiana, and his pitch is that I'm one of those Midwesterners who have Midwestern values, and I should be able to close the deal here in the Midwest. The same argument, frankly, that Amy Klobuchar is making. So I think what he's saying is that, I need to prove that I can win in Trump country, which is, clearly the Midwest. So I think that's what he's saying. And quite frankly, I can totally understand where that could be a disconnect from messaging. But I don't specifically think it's messaging from Pete. I think it's more of a laser focus on, guys, if I don't get this right, I'm not going to be around to talk to the black and brown communities, because if he finishes fourth in the two of the next two races, he's not going to be able to get enough money to get him to Super Tuesday.
Well, I know one thing. Whoever wants to win, whether it be the orange orangutan in the White House or one of the Democrats, they better win the women vote, in particular women of color. If they don't win that, they 100%. Don't win.
Well, the Democrats, Rahm Emanuel yesterday, to your exact point, there was a Bernie Sanders surrogate was on with George Stephanopoulos, and she was saying, well, Bernie Sanders, if Bernie Sanders is the nominee, he can win. And Rahm Emanuel said, no, he can't. And she said, why? And he said, because the black and Hispanic vote will not turn out for Bernie Sanders. It's not going to happen.
Yeah.
And he goes, and Elizabeth Warren, because you have to get real. You want to win, find yourself the center. Now, interestingly enough, Elizabeth Warren, at least over the past few weeks, is starting to tack a little bit to the center to say, look, I want to unite the party. I don't want to divide it. There's room enough for all of us in this tent, and she's trying to do that because Bernie has been burning bridges over the past couple of weeks from his surrogates out on the stump are just alienating a number of folks who they're going to need if Bernie were to actually get the nomination.
Yeah, yeah. Well, Jim, it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out. I don't Iowa and New Hampshire is. I don't understand why they don't flip that around and maybe go with Nevada first or somewhere where it's a mixture of people
Well,
and not.
To your point, Ella, you could take Iowa and you could take Iowa and South Carolina and do them on the first week in February, and you could spin around and do Nevada and New Hampshire, and you get 4 primaries in the first 2 sets, and that would be somewhat representative of the Democratic Party.
Right.
But they didn't ask us, so hopefully they'll take our advice someday.
Well, it's going to be interesting to see what happens. And then this impeachment stuff, you think Joe Manchin can get it done? And what is that going to do for Trump? Because, he's got a State of the Union address Wednesday. So is he still going to say, I'm exonerated? But, well, I guess he will. He's
going to say whatever he wants to say.
Right.
Yeah. If they were to vote on closure, it wouldn't come sooner than Wednesday. And I think we'll know in the next 24 hours if Manchin can move the needle. If he can get to those 4 votes, as I said before, it's up to Mitch McConnell whether it goes to the floor for a vote. If it doesn't, then it doesn't. And he walks away with not even a slap on the wrist.
Well, these Republicans, Mitch McConnell, a.k.a. Mr. Magoo, a.k.a. Turkey Neck, they have blood on their hands. And I'm very serious when I say that. Everything that they blocked for so many Americans, everything they're doing now, giving this guy a pass, no guardrails, no nothing, he's going to do it again because he's that greedy and that stupid. He'll do it again before he gets out of office. Hopefully it'll be 1 term. But Mitch McConnell, it's just like my sister say he's going to hell, but it's just it's some angry folks, Tim. You talk to him, so we'll see what happens. There's a lot
of people who are on your sister's camp. They're actually looking through Dante's Inferno to find out which ring of hell he's going to land up on.
Yeah, he's going to be.
If you don't understand that, folks, it's a good thing to Google because we're here, if nothing else, to teach you on the pad.
There you go, Jim Williams of Apple News. We were both wrong by the way about the Super Bowl, but that's because they got a coach whose name is Peanut Butter Sandwich because he choked once again like he was with Atlanta. He stopped running the ball. How stupid was that?
Well,
but
if you're up by 10 points with 7 minutes to go in the game, and you lose the game by 21 points, something happened.
I'm happy for Patrick Mahomes, the third quarterback and the black quarterback that won the Super Bowl. So that was really good, and I'm proud of him. And I know his father and all those are proud as well. Jim Williams, be well.
Good for Andy. It was good for Andy Reid too.
Absolutely.
Two good people get it, and you know what? It's an entertaining final 7 minutes, unless you're a Niners fan.
Yeah, because it was a snoozer going into that last 7 minutes or so. But big ups to the Chiefs. Congratulations to them. I'm glad I was wrong on that one.
Me too.
Jim, be well, man. I'll get you on. If there's any more breaking news, please get at me so we can get that on the air. And I appreciate the breaking news you gave us this evening, sir.
No, I wanted to bring it to you, and it took me a little while to get there.
Thanks, man.
You be well, my friend.
You too.
Bye.
All right. Jim Williams, of course, always good to have him on from Apple News. If you just joined us, what he said was that Joe Manchin, who's a Democrat in the Senate, is trying to get 4 votes, and he said he has the 4 votes to censor the president. It's not removal, I know, but anything you can slap him up the side of the head with his wig would be a good thing. He's going to stick his chest out anyway, but it's all good. Let's take a quick break and come back. I want to get Orlando Big O Hughes on and Tony T. Mac McLean. I want to talk about the Super Bowl, but I want to talk about the commentary. If you listen to it, it's nothing new. Pad Nation, and T and O, you know what I'm talking about. They were hyping up Andy Reid, and Eric Bieniemy, I guess, wasn't even on the side calling the plays. I mean, just a masterful game plan that he had, that it worked out. And they were killing Pat Mahomes and the great foreign star, Jimmy Garoppolo, you know, with hyping him up, and he was a scrub. They don't want to give the brother any credit, but I digress. Take a break. It's the Bachelor News. Oh, and I also want to say we'll be talking with Rick Curti. He is the owner of the Charlotte Bats. He's trying to bring a baseball team to Charlotte, North Carolina, Major League Baseball. Going to talk about that and what our people specifically can expect in Charlotte, because we know how they treated CIAA, not the CIAA, but the city of Charlotte treat us when we go to the big basketball tournament. But we'll talk baseball with him and all of that as well. It is the Bachelor News Radio Network. Radio Show. LA Bachelor with you. And thank you to Jim Williams of Apple News, talking politics, Tom Donaldson before him. A little later, we'll talk with Nick Anastos, the owner of Anastos Media, get his thoughts on the Super Bowl. And, of course, Tom Brady, where is he going? There's some rumors saying maybe the Raiders, they're moving to Nevada. And maybe that'll happen. Big ups to all the people loving the selections tonight. Look, I know music, man. Y'all, but T-Mac and Big O, you can't go wrong with Bobby Caldwell, especially with the dun 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 dun. That thing is bad. That's a song that, that's one of those easy ones you could just kind of sing along to, and we're happy to put that stuff on the air. I want to go to you guys and thank you for joining us as always, and please bear with me, folks. I'm still fighting this cold. But T, you look at the Super Bowl, and you know how we do it. We're going to examine the stuff on the field, but we're also going to look at what the undertones and underlying things that go on, especially as it relates to race. But first, just Shanahan, they want to talk about how great he is, a mastermind, the young mind, the son of Mike Shanahan, who won the Super Bowls. Of course, he had Terrell Davis, but nobody talks about that.
He's the son of a something, that's for sure.
Yeah, he's definitely a son of something. But I don't even know. Okay, run the ball, stop the run. Defense played well. They were shutting Kansas City down for the most part. Although, like I said, Eric Bieniemy came out running the ball, and Williams I thought could have been MVP, but that's another story. But the way they ran the ball, I thought that was great. But this peanut butter sandwich decides to. First of all, he had no confidence in his quarterback, Jimmy G, and he had no confidence in his offense. It was evident with 2 minutes left in the half, where he started just handing the ball off. No confidence. Even Lynch, the GM, is saying, call timeout, call timeout. He's trying to run out the clock. But this is what I'm saying. Eric Bieniemy is still an offensive coordinator, which they don't give him credit. If you listen to the commentators, especially with the brilliance of Andy Reid, no disrespect, but he still don't have a job. But this Shanahan can, in 2 Super Bowls now, with Atlanta now, chokes and makes stupid mistakes, but yet he's the young, brilliant mind, white guy, and Eric Bieniemy can't get a job. And oh, by the way, Freddie Kitchen, who was horrible in Cleveland for 1 year, gets a job as a tight ends coach in Washington. So it continues to go on and on. Brothers can't get a job, but they recycle all these so-called smart, white experts.
I'll put it this way. Basically, all the stuff that was said about Kyle Shanahan this year was said about Sean McVay, otherwise known as Who, a year ago, with the Rams, and you notice how all of a sudden he's more like Wile E. Coyote Super Genius ever since that Super Bowl. But first of all, I'm happy for Andy Reid.
Yep.
Happy for Mahomes as well. It's put it this way. It's very interesting. He's got that touchdown record that he broke with he broke Marino's touchdown record, I guess, for the first 2 seasons as a full starter, and most importantly, he won his Super Bowl because he knows that you cannot guarantee that you're going to get a chance to get back there as well. I made it once I heard Fox was doing the game, I made it a concerted effort to sort of just mentally tunnel vision those guys out, because Joe Buck is Joe Buck is as predictable as an S.D. Jones wrestling match. And Troy Aikman is and Troy Aikman has concussions. Now I'll just leave it as that. But it's it's because that's how predictable they are. you knew the direction it was going to go to, and it was funny because somebody blurted out at the Super Bowl party that I was at yesterday, if y'all had done right by Cap, man, you might have won. And I was
right.
Yeah. There is some irony to it, but on a football level, I definitely would have given Williams the MVP myself. I mean,
I would have too.
Man, the ball. No disrespect, no disrespect to Mahomes, but hey, if put it this way, I guess he's in the club now in a sense because you've seen a lot of quarterbacks. They just give him the MVP or what have you. But
right, and Williams really was the only one balling for the first half of the game. He was the only one balling, running hard, catching the ball. He caught a touchdown pass. He ran one in. Of course, he had the closing one at the end of the game. He, 104 yards. That's a beautiful thing.
Well, to Zach Wister's credit, he was balling too, but unfortunately, his coach didn't notice. But it was funny to me because I was asking which coach had more pressure, Andy for coming up short, or Shanahan trying to get the stench of 28-3 out of his mouth. And see, that just adds even more to with the enemy not being given an opportunity. I hope he does get an opportunity at some point. It's a damn shame that he still has to sing for his supper, so to speak. But he's got to win. Put it this way, if nothing else, when he gets his next interview, he's gonna be like, what he should do is sort of scratch his chin, showing the Super Bowl ring while he's at it.
Right. And Orlando, it's a lot to. First of all, you saw Andy Reid up and close in Philly, and a one-legged T.O. and Donovan, all of that. He didn't get it done. And to Reid's credit, the Chiefs have been good even before Mahomes got there. He was good with Alex Smith. They just didn't get over the hump. But it's really ironic that Andy Reid, who to me is Mr. Conservative, he coaches not to lose, was the one going for it on fourth down, was the one taking those chances. While Mr. Shanahan, as T said, was coaching like it was 28-3. He didn't want to lose again. But again, you look at an Eric Bieniemy who put that. Andy Reid said he put that game plan together. That's his team. That's his offense. He's given them the free reins. He's endorsed his brother, and yet Troy Aikman is talking about all kinds of, and Andy Reid, what a great move. Just like with Pat Mahomes, this black quarterback who's balling out, has been since he's been in the league, but they all on Jimmy G's job. And Jimmy G ain't do anything. And they were ready to throw Holmes under the bus. They were already saying, and he's panicking, and wow, we haven't seen this before. And then all of a sudden, he's like, okay, I got this. And then now they want to pay homage to him after that. But the Leslie Frazier's and all these coaches, and it never seems to change. Even in the midst, if brother gets the Super Bowl, they ball out, and they still don't want to give credit to the black men that made this happen. Oh, by the way, Black History Month as well. So,
well, Troy Aikman. Let's examine it for 30 seconds. Had one of the top 4 or 5 running backs in the history of the game. Had at least the top 10 wide receiver. Mm-hmm. He had an all-pro tight end and 3 Hall of Famers on the offensive line. And probably for the first part of his career, he is a Hall of Fame coach in Jimmy Johnson. After Michael left, after Emmett didn't have that offensive line there, Emmett became an average running back, i.e. going to Arizona, then returning back to Dallas. And Troy started getting concussions. Well, he was always having concussions, as previously mentioned by T-Mac, but he wasn't worth anything. Troy Aikman is, if there were no Joe Namath, Troy Aikman would be the worst quarterback in the Hall of Fame.
Ouch.
I don't give him any credit for what he's accomplished. And I believe it's Fred, Winston-Salem State alum, who says if you're not a Dallas Cowboy alum, why should you be calling color in the games? Tony's right. They're horrible. To listen to Buck and his Scooby-Doo innuendo, being predictable as to what he's going to say, and Troy Aikman that knows the game. I'll give him credit. He knows the game. But he's always better than that during the game. And you played in an era that I didn't believe in Troy Aikman. I know those Cowboys teams won 3 championships, all of that, and I heard all the stuff. And people say I'm bitter, and I'll be bitter. But I don't think that he's that. And when they look at a Patrick Mahomes, see, what's defining to them is that he's Michael Vick. So they didn't like Randall. They had an excuse for Randall. They didn't like, Donovan allowed them to get into Donovan's head. So Donovan brought into the theory, and he didn't want to be a black quarterback. Michael Vick, sadly to say, Atlanta's not the city that Michael Vick should have went to. Not the city he would have went to. If you give Michael Vick a start in any other city, his career is a lot better than what it was. But 75 nightclubs, strip clubs around the city of Atlanta. The way Atlanta was in the 90s, that's not a good place. So what happened to Mike Vick? Unfortunately, just the wrong spot, wrong time. But so what happens to the black quarterback? The black quarterback, it becomes advanced. So now you go Michael Vick, and now you have Lamar Jackson. Now you have my man out in Texas, Houston, Deshaun Watson, Russell Wilson. Like the evolution of the black quarterback. And these white folks can't stand it. Because while you say Michael Vick gets hit all the time, Russell never gets hit. Russell gets rid of the rock. Right? So what does Pat Mahomes do? He's slinging the ball all around the place. He's throwing it off balance like our great man in Green Bay. That's a bad man, Stephen Clown Smith will say. Aaron Rodgers, but he completes his passes.
Let's hold that thought. We're gonna come
motivated,
back.
Let's hold motivated.
Hold that thought. We're gonna come back and finish up that conversation. Take a 30-second break, and I want to bring in my next guest. I definitely want to go back to that conversation because it's relative to the way we want to close the show. And my next guest, Rick Curti, is the owner of the Charlotte Bats. We're going to talk about why Charlotte, why bring a Major League Baseball team to Charlotte, and we'll get his thoughts on what the commissioner is doing, where they are, and find out, what the chances are at this point. 646-929-0130, the number to get in touch with us. Press 1 to get on the line. Hit us up on Facebook at Pad Nation, Pad Nation 2 at Twitter, LinkedIn, and anywhere else. And don't forget, if you miss any part of the broadcast, you can go to our website, thebachelorpadnetwork.com.
My sinuses feel like they're going to explode.
Sudafed, aisle 5.
My allergies have my sinuses all stuffed up.
Sudafed, aisle 5.
Tell the man what's wrong.
My sinuses. Sudafed, aisle 5.
Sinus misery? Get Sudafed. Nothing stronger at relieving even your worst sinus symptoms. Not even a prescription.
This could just...
Sudafed, aisle 5.
Sudafed. Prescription strength sinus relief. Based on 24-hour dose of pseudoephedrine.
Welcome back to the Bachelor News Radio show. Thanks to Jim Williams. Thanks to Tom Donaldson. And, of course, on the line, my brothers and co-hosts, Big O, Orlando Hughes, and at KRS Radio in Philly, Tony T-Mac McClain, editor of Black Athlete Sports Network. I want to go back to the phones, like catch my breath here, and bring in our next guest. Of course, he is the owner of the Charlotte Bats. He is Rick Curti. And Rick, we appreciate you coming on. Welcome for the first time to the Bachelor News Radio show, sir.
Thanks, guys. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. So, Brainchild, what made you want to bring baseball to Charlotte? I'm actually in Durham. What made you want to bring baseball, Major League Baseball, to Charlotte? Where did the name come from, and what is your background in terms of, baseball itself?
Well, I grew up in Los Angeles, California, so I'm not a Southerner, but I'm from Southern California, so that's close to it. I moved out here. Yeah, there, y'all. So there you go. I moved out here about 2006. I actually lived in Las Vegas for about 5 years. And so I want to do something different. So I came to Charlotte. Don't know why. I just heard a lot of nice things about it. I have a cousin who lives in Greensboro, so why not give it a shot? And I fell in love with the city, like, automatically. And now it's been like 14 years. So I consider Charlotte my home. I consider North Carolina my home state. And one thing that I just didn't understand was, why has North Carolina never had Major League Baseball? We're growing like crazy. We have a sister state next door, so we can get people from South Carolina to come, because there's no pro sports in South Carolina. There's no sports in Virginia, no baseball team in Virginia. There's no baseball team in Tennessee. This is the best market to have a Major League Baseball team, and why Major League Baseball has ignored Charlotte or North Carolina for years is beyond me. So because I have nothing else to do in my life, I thought, let's study this. And for 2 years, I saw that the numbers were there, the growth was there, the money's definitely here because we have all the banks. And so I just came up with, I want to see this happen. So I actually had two choices, either do it or just sit there and do nothing about it and hope. So I started a Facebook page, and I just called it Let's Bring MLB to Charlotte. Now it's called the Charlotte Bats. And all of a sudden, all these people, I didn't know who they were saying, let's do it. And there were people not just from North Carolina or South Carolina, there were people from like Philadelphia, people from Los Angeles. I heard from a guy from Germany that said, yeah, I think Charlotte's a great place to bring Major League Baseball. And it just grew and grew and grew. So we just figured, well, let's create a name and just not just say bring MLB to Charlotte. Let's create a name. Let's create a logo. Let's create uniforms. Let's see what people have to say. Either they love it or hate it. So we named ourselves the Charlotte Bats after a minor league baseball team in Greensboro called the Greensboro Bats from 1994 to 2004. Right. And now they're called the Greensboro Grasshoppers. So I thought that's a cool name, the Charlotte Bats, because it has a connection to North Carolina. The colors we chose are the colors of the city of Charlotte and of our University of UNCC, go 49ers. And so, not San Francisco, but the UNCC 49ers. Yeah. So we just combined all that together, came up with the Charlotte Bats, and here we are.
It's really, when you look at some of the information you have on your website, at charlottebest.com, it talks about how fast Charlotte is growing. I know the Triangle is probably the fastest, but Charlotte's one of the cities, not just in the state of North Carolina, but one of the cities that is growing. I think the third largest media market, you said, and 3 million people. And if you have the third largest media market, you already have the Panthers, you already have the Bobcats, you already got NASCAR and all that other stuff. It makes a lot of sense. What is Manfred saying at this point in terms of, and do you have any leverage to get this team here?
Well, the great thing was that in 2015, Commissioner Manfred actually put out a list of possible cities for expansion, and Charlotte is on that list. And when he came up with his list, he had cities like New Jersey, he had Oklahoma, and all that stuff. He had Mexico, which I don't think Mexico, but he had Mexico on there, and he shortened it. And so now it's 6 cities, but Charlotte's still on the list. Montreal's on the list, Charlotte, Portland, Las Vegas, Vancouver, and Nashville. Those are the cities that are on the list. And so that's the great thing. However, you're talking about the leverage. They won't expand till they get ballparks in Oakland and Tampa Bay. That's the holdup right now. And
wow.
Yeah, that's the holdup. And we all already know the
nobody
Raiders
goes to the games in Tampa Bay. I mean, really.
I know. I've been telling people this for a long time. I mean, they're in St. Petersburg, for Pete's sake. They're not even in Tampa Bay. And, I mean, they couldn't even sell out the World Series, okay? And I love Florida.
Right.
They just cannot support Major League Baseball. They got a team in Miami, in the heart of downtown Miami, with a lot of Latino people. And Latino people love baseball. Cuban people love baseball. They're not even going to the games. You have Derek Jeter, probably one of the greatest players of all time, one of the greatest Yankees of all time. Congratulations on going to the Hall of Fame. Well deserved.
Amen.
And yeah,
I'm a Yankee fan.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
And they're not going to the games. There's too much going on in Miami. I mean, you got the nightlife, the beaches, sort of like Los Angeles. A lot to do there. But yeah, Tampa Bay. I mean, the Rays have been a joke. They're a great team. They can't even sell out the games. But he doesn't want them to leave. He doesn't like Oakland. I don't know. I think they're going to get a new ballpark eventually. I mean, the Raiders are gone now, so I don't know what's going to happen to their old stadium. But they need a new stadium. But Tampa Bay is a whole different thing. Now they're thinking about splitting the season in Montreal. So I guess it's going to be the Tampa Bay Montreal Rays, which is beyond idiotic. Their lease expires in 2027. And if they don't get a new stadium by that time, Tampa Bay is most likely going to be going away. We've heard rumors they might go to Montreal. We've heard rumors they might go to Portland. You got to put them in Charlotte. You don't even have to move them in a division. Just keep them in the American League East. We have ton of transplants here. Nobody here is from Charlotte. Okay, we have people from Boston. We got people from Maryland. We got people here from New York. Wouldn't you love to see your Yankees come to Charlotte to play a game? I know you would. I'd love to see the Dodgers come out here because we got interleague play. Our minor league baseball team has one of the largest attendance in all of minor league baseball. It's one of the most visited ballparks. About 9,000 people come to a stadium where it seats about less than 11,000. And they're excited to see baseball. And if they get that excited to see a minor league baseball AAA team, can you imagine how excited they would be to see Major League Baseball? And the great thing is that Major League Soccer is going to come to Charlotte too. So we're not known just for college sports. We're known, we have, like you said, the Hornets, we got the Panthers, we got a hockey team in Raleigh, and now we're going to get Major League Soccer coming here. And I think eventually it's an elite to Major League Baseball.
Let me ask you this. We'll talk with Rick Curtis, of course, here on the Curti, on the Bachelor News Radio Show. Let me ask you a couple of questions. And you do bring up the fact that it'll bring lots of jobs to Charlotte, because you have to employ people to work the stands and the groundskeepers and ticket people and all the announcers and everything under the sun. Let me ask you this as an African American. baseball, before I go to Tony, I'm sure he's got questions. Baseball has a very problem in terms of identity when it comes to African Americans. As you know, I'm sure the decline of players are going down by the droves, decade after decade. So my first question is, how do you think that if the team comes here that you can draw people of color that, well, I would say African Americans, because there are a lot of Latino ball players, Dominicans, and everybody else in the game at every level. But in terms of black people looking on the field and not seeing people that always look like them. And then the second question is, if you've been in Charlotte as long as you have, about the CIAA basketball tournament that comes there, and there was some controversy about how African Americans were treated by the hotels and different places like that in the city of Charlotte, which is probably why one of the reasons why the tournament's moving to Baltimore. But is that a concern in terms of city of Charlotte? Is there any relations that one would be concerned with? Like Atlanta moved into sort of suburbs. They're not really in the heart of Atlanta anymore. There was some concerns about that, what that meant. So talk about those two things before we go to T-Mac.
Sure. Well, Major League Baseball does have an issue with not having African Americans. I think 25% decline in African Americans in baseball. When I watched baseball, I saw Tony Gwynn, Fred McGriff, Kirby Puckett, Dave Stewart, all these great African American baseball players, and now they're gone. And most of them, I agree, they're from Cuba, they're from the Dominican Republic. Nobody wants to be Mike Trout. Everybody wants to be LeBron James. They want to be Kobe. They want to be Michael Jordan. That's a great thing about what the NBA has done. They've done such a great job in having African Americans in the sport.
Just real quick to Rick, just to be clear, nobody, especially me, has a problem with anybody who wants to be like Mike Trout. He's a great player. Just to clear that. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I totally agree. But they don't want to be that next big baseball star. It's always either NBA or another sport. Major League Baseball has done a terrible job trying to get African Americans in sports. I don't know what they've done. They've set up some kind of committee trying to get more African Americans in sports. They're not doing enough. I don't think they do enough to promote their baseball players. Hockey has an issue with it too. I've heard hockey players getting booed and racist chants when they're on the ice, which is disgusting. And Major League Baseball needs to do a better job. Like, they need to follow the model of the NBA, what they've been doing, and other sports. And my goal when I bring Major League Baseball, I want to bring diversity. I'm all about diversity. I don't care if you're black, white, tall, short, gay, straight. I want you to be here. I want people to come here. Just one of the reasons I love sports is because there's so much diversity there. Nobody cares what your politics are or what your religion is. We want to see sports out there. People love sports. I love sports. I follow all sports. So I would bring like a committee, a board to see what we can do. I think Major League Baseball has not gone into like the inner cities, what they need to do. They need to have like after school programs to get kids interested in baseball, and hopefully partner up with the NBA and see what is the NBA doing that we're not doing right. What are they doing? Because they're doing such a great job in doing that. And so that's the one thing about Major League Baseball that I'm disappointed in, that there's not that diversity when I was growing up. There was so much of it, and it's not. It's a lot of white players now, like Mike Trout, or a lot of Latino players. But you don't see African-American players playing baseball no more. And it's sad to hear them not saying they want to be the next Kirby Puckett. They don't want to be the next Tony Gwynn. They want to be the next LeBron, which is fantastic because I love LeBron James. He's great. But I want a young African-American kid coming up to me and say, I want to be Kirby Puckett. I want to be Tony Gwynn. I want to be Dave Stewart. I want to be, the next great African American baseball player, and hopefully, and I'm confident Major League Baseball will do that because they're losing a big chunk of their fan base right there.
Right, and you're a Cali kid, so you were blessed to see the likes of a Tony Gwynn, arguably I think the greatest hitter of all time, and the crime dog and McGriff and all those guys.
Awesome.
I mean, come on now. I mean, that's those are some dogs right there, man. And, you're right about that. Those two guys and Kirby Puckett was money in the bank, in the playoffs.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
You could just cash it in with him.
Dave Stewart with that scowl.
Yeah. Talking with Rick Curti, of course, the owner of the Charlotte Bats, here on the Bachelor News Radio Show. 646-929-0130, the number. Get in touch with us. Press 1 to get on the line. Pad Nation, hit us up on Facebook, on Twitter at PadNation2, number 2. You have a question. His website is charlottebats.com. You can go there even in the midst of this interview. Right now, though, I'm going to go to my co-host and colleague and good friend, Tony T. Mac McLean, who, unfortunately, Rick, is a Met fan, but we won't hold it against him anyway.
It's okay.
Go ahead, T. T, you there? He might have it. He might be on mute. T.
I'm here.
Okay, there you go. All right.
Well, it was because I got tired of hearing the Yankee propaganda, but I'll...
Whatever.
I'll move on for a minute. Rick, I was actually watching your site as well while you guys were conversing. What are I don't know if you're familiar with there's talk of Manfred had made a talk about how they wanted to actually cut down on some teams in minor league baseball. Now, how did now you're trying to put a team there? What do you think you're getting mixed messages from Manfred in a sense because with this?
I mean, some people can look at it that way. Other teams, unfortunately, if that happens, it's going to be devastating to their cities because, like if Charlotte lost their minor league team, it would suck, but we would survive. But there's other cities out there that are so small that they have to rely on these minor league baseball teams. So I guess some people could look at it as a mixed message that, okay, you want to expand with Major League Baseball, so why do you want to get rid of all these minor league baseball teams? And so, that's something I guess you would have to ask him because I would hate to see it. I love minor league baseball. I think it's great. It's great for cities, especially in other places where there's small cities and have to rely on that revenue from that minor league baseball team. So, I don't know what's going to happen with that. I know he's gotten a lot of backlash with it. He's gotten a lot of backlash for trying to, next I heard he wants to put, use computer robots for umpires. People are angry about that. So it's all about the game is just long, and unfortunately, a lot of the younger people are not tuning into Major League Baseball. That's another problem they have with baseball, not just with African Americans, but with these young people, the millennials or the Gen X or whatever you want to call them. They're not tuning in no more. The games are too long. They're on their iPhones talking to their friends or taking selfies, and they're not going to the baseball games anymore. They're going to football. Football's done a wonderful job with African Americans, and that's something I wish Major League Baseball would talk with the NFL and the NBA about. What are you guys doing? What are we doing wrong? So they're trying to do everything they can, but with the minor league baseball teams and what's going on with it, honestly, I really don't know where they're going with that because it's going to hurt baseball. It's going to hurt a lot of cities. So hopefully they'll change his mind about that.
In that same vein, now, I lived in Carolina years ago, and there was a movement then to try and bring Major League Baseball then, and it sort of fell sidewise when people, were talking about the value and how the taxes, whatever. What is, without divulging it, step by step, but what's your 3-point plan to try to bring Major League Baseball to Charlotte?
Well, pretty simply, I always just tell people our plan is to bring jobs to bring a fun family atmosphere for people and to create just a lot of fun and excitement, you know. And yeah, you know, I remember that in the 90s, Mr. Beaver, who's the owner of the Knights, he was trying to bring the Twins to North Carolina from Huntersville, not too far from Charlotte, and it died because they were going to put a vote on it, and they were going to use tax money to build a stadium, and people said no. And I think it was actually not bad because I think Charlotte was not ready for it at that time. We were not the big, we were just starting to grow. So I think if he did bring a baseball team to Charlotte, it probably would have been like Tampa Bay, where we're not there. Now we're ready because we're like a big, bustling metro city. And talking about with taxes or stuff like that, I think having maybe like a tourist tax would be great. I think like what Las Vegas did with their stadium, because they knew the people of Nevada wouldn't pay for it, so they put a tourist tax. That's something that we could possibly do, bring in maybe a little tourist tax when the tourists come here. Or we can do like Green Bay does. Let's have the people own it. I think what Green Bay is doing is fantastic. They don't have an owner. The people own it. I would love to see something like that with our team. Have the people own the team and be part of it. And I think that would be some fun, and it'd be something different for us and make us unique.
And one last one. Do you think because there is such a baseball background in the state of North Carolina, you've got teams basically in every level, whether it be the Durham Bulls or the teams in the Carolina League, do you think that will help? Do you think because you've got somewhat of a built-in fan base there, do you think that will help, or do you think that hurts your chances?
No, I think it's going to help. I think, like I said, North Carolina is a great place. There's a lot of famous baseball players that played here. Cal Ripken played here when we were the Charlotte O's. We had Harmon Killebrew. We actually had a baseball team called the Charlotte Hornets before the basketball team. Tony Oliva played here. If you've seen the movie Field of Dreams, there was a character named Archibald Moonlight Graham. He actually was a real guy. He actually was from Fayetteville, and he played for the Charlotte Hornets. So I think having that history and having legendary teams like the Durham Bulls, we have the Greensboro Grasshoppers, Kannapolis, the Intimidators is building a new team. Gastonia is going to have an independent baseball team. They're building a new ballpark out there. That's exciting. And so I think having a lot of baseball team here is not going to hurt us. I think it's going to help us, and it just shows that North Carolina can support professional baseball. And the great thing, I think the advantage that we have, unlike these other cities that are on this list, is that we have a sister state next door in South Carolina. They don't have pro teams. And so, they got Clemson, they got the Gamecocks, but they don't have a professional baseball team or professional football team. Those people can come and support us in Charlotte just like they come and see the Panthers play. So, they can call them the Charlotte Bats. I prefer the Charlotte Bats. Or they can call them the Carolina Bats if they want to incorporate South Carolina with that. So I think there's a lot of things you can do with it, but I think it's going to help us in the long run.
All right, thanks.
Yeah, and then don't forget about Fayetteville. I took my kids to a game not too long ago there. The nice facility there as well.
Oh yeah.
A lot of in minor league baseball it's nothing like it. It's inexpensive. The kids love it. They always have great events and stuff going on. It's a good place to take the family and go. Orlando Hughes.
Hey, good evening. Thanks for joining us today. The irony of hearing you speak of the Charlotte Bats, I was really in a discussion last Thursday evening with someone, and I guess I came across that list they were talking about with the teams, and we were talking about prospective cities. And I think MLB is going to make a push for Las Vegas. I think Vegas is in play, but I think the team on the East Coast would be Charlotte or Nashville.
Yep.
As are the two cities that I see. I don't see them rejoining Montreal because that failed miserably in the past, although it's a nostalgic team, but they failed miserably But the up-and-coming cities in the South that I really enjoy would be, Nashville and Charlotte. So I guess my question would be, and I hear you making a strong case for it being the Carolina bats and what the fan base that you naturally pull from South Carolina. Obviously, you pull from around the Carolinas. But what would I personally think that if you do get a team, it needs to be an NL team because you develop that natural rivalry with the Braves, which would be nice. But sell Charlotte over Nashville, because I think it would come down to these two teams. Because I think you said it was Charlotte, Nashville, Orlando, Vegas, and somewhere else. I forgot, Portland, which I think is asinine in itself.
Yeah. Well, Nashville's very similar to Charlotte. I think Nashville actually would be a great place. I'm surprised that they weren't originally mentioned on that list, and then eventually he put them in there. Nashville is a lot like Charlotte. It's a big, growing, bustling city. Again, that city gets stereotyped. They get stereotyped with country music. We get stereotyped with NASCAR, but they got the Tennessee Titans there. They don't have a team they have a team in Memphis. I'm surprised they're not in Nashville. I think Nashville could support it there. And, of course, they got the Predators out there. So I think Nashville is, to me, they're a very serious contender out there. But I think what's going to help us, again, is going to be having South Carolina next door. I think being two states in one gives us that advantage that the other cities don't have, They do want to bring the Expos back. That's what I've been hearing. I heard that Montreal is a lock to get it. They want to make it more global, sort of like what the NBA is doing, sort of like what the NFL is doing. The MLB is doing the same thing, having games in Mexico. They've been having exhibition games in Montreal. They just had a game in London with the Yankees and Red Sox, which was kind of wild, kind of neat. And so they want to make it more global. So I think Montreal will probably come back now that because I think they want to have two teams in Canada. I think Vancouver would be a great spot, but I think the Mariners would have a problem with that, and that would have to disqualify Portland because I can't see Portland, Vancouver, and Seattle having a team because of the markets. And so I think Charlotte to me is like a no-brainer for me because we have South Carolina next door. There's not a team in Virginia. That's another place that doesn't have Major League Baseball. So if Nashville can get one, that'll help us. So I think that'll be the advantage for Charlotte over Nashville is that we have a sister state next door, and we're so close to Tennessee anyway, and we're close to Virginia that doesn't have it. So you have this big open market around us without it. And our only rivalry we have is the Atlanta Braves, or as I like to call them, the Smyrna, Georgia Braves, because they're not in Atlanta no more. They're in Smyrna, Georgia, which is I think is a disgrace to me. I love Atlanta. I think Atlanta's a great city. I miss Atlanta Full County Stadium, and so I'm old school. So I think that'll be the advantage for us for having a Major League Baseball team is having South Carolina next door and not having a team in Tennessee or Virginia or around those demographics. We're like 9 hours from Washington, D.C., and we're like 4.5 hours away. And like I tell people, you want to drive 4.5 hours to Smyrna, Georgia, go see the Braves? Hey, go at it. I'm not going to waste my gas money on that.
All right, thank you. Appreciate you.
I would say if they're gonna go Canada, I would go Toronto. I wouldn't go Vancouver. But I wouldn't do Canada anyway. Not all failure in Montreal. Remember the strike season? They should have been champions, as we know. Speaking of that, before you go, real quick, and Nick, I see you. Rick, Hall of Fame, Larry Walker, deserve to get in?
When I first heard it, I was like, Major League Baseball, again, is making it the Hall of Very Good. But I look back and I see his numbers. I'm okay with it. I'm fine with it. I think last year, no disrespect, but Harold Baines, seriously? I mean, he was a great player, not a Hall of Famer. And so I don't have a problem with the Baseball Hall of Fame this year. I don't have a problem with, of course, Derek Jeter should have got in easily. That was a no-brainer. Larry Walker, he was one of those borderline people. A lot of people say, well, he played in Canada, in Colorado, and that thin air, but he was already a great baseball player in Montreal, so I don't have a problem with it. So, yeah, he should be in the Hall of Fame. So we'll see what happens next year. But this year they actually got it right. I'm glad that they put Marvin Miller in. Marvin Miller was a pioneer for the Players Union. Without Marvin Miller,
he was a beast. That's right.
Yeah, NFL would not have no Players Union. Players would not have rights. Players couldn't appeal suspensions or anything like that or go through arbitration. That was all because of Marvin Miller. And I'm just very, very happy that he's in there. And one thing Major League Baseball needs to do, they need to wake up, and I know you mentioned about it. How in the world is Fred McGriff not in the Hall of Fame?
Yeah.
The crime dog needs to be in, man. That guy hit close to 500 home runs. He won a World Series. He led both the American and National League in home runs. And he had 5 straight years of 30 home runs or more. And back then, hitting 30 home runs was like hitting 40 or 50. And,
right.
It was just a different time. His numbers are there. How Major League Baseball keeps snubbing him. And yet you have players like Harold Baines, and no disrespect to him, or Alan Trammell. If you got to put Alan Trammell in the Hall of Fame, where in the world is Lou Whitaker? Why is he not in the Hall of Fame?
Oh, man, you just opened up a can of worms now, man. I mean, you were opening up some serious tea. I mean, I have to ask you about Larry Walker because Harold Baines is probably, for me, in my opinion, is sort of the equivalent, like a great hitter and all that. But like, I think that Rick kind of said it right. Is a Hall of Fame or Hall of really good? Because I don't know. I mean, I don't see Harold Baines as a Hall of Famer, and I just have a problem with Larry Walker as a Hall of Famer too.
Yeah, I mean, Larry Walker is kind of like, but I see it, and like I said, the way they're going at it, like I said, it's becoming the Hall of Very Good. You don't see this controversy in the NBA, man. You have players in the NBA Hall of Fame, in the Basketball Hall of Fame, they're like no-brainers. I mean, Kobe's going to get in. We all know that. We all know LeBron's going to get in. Jordan, Roy Williams. You go on and on and on and on. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. There's never any controversy with the NBA and the Hall of Fame, the Basketball Hall of Fame, or any other sport. But for some reason, Major League Baseball has become the Hall of Very Good. Even the NFL gets it. Once in a while, they'll get someone in there that's from the 40s that probably should have gone in a long time ago. But, I mean, Troy Polamalu, you got Rod Woodson. I mean, you got, players that get in that's like no-brainers. But Major League Baseball, for some reason, kind of goofs it up and it's become the Hall of Very Good.
Yeah,
I don't think Barry Larkin. I mean, I love Barry Larkin. I never saw him as a Hall of Famer, or Tim Raines. Great players, no doubt about it. But Hall of Fame, I don't know about that. But like I said, you need to put the crime dog in the Hall of Fame. You need to put Lou Whitaker in the Hall of Fame. Those are the two guys that I don't understand why they're not in the Hall of Fame.
Well, Rock Raines, I think, deserves to be in there. I'm going to disagree with you on that one. Tim Raines, I thought, he was really good. Him and Ricky Henderson in terms of stealing bases. But again, that Montreal team that should have won a World Series, the strike season and everything that happened there. Rick, before you go, let people know how they can follow you or reach out to your website and get in touch with you to get on this petition, because it is a petition to bring baseball to Charlotte.
Yeah, we have a petition on our website. It's www.charlottebats.com. We actually have uniforms. We're going to come out with an online store this year. We actually have a theme song. Our slogan is, we're going to be flying to a town near you. So we have our theme song you can listen to, a little thing about me. You can go on our media page and see our interviews we've been doing. And if you have any questions, comments, you could say, I think this is great, or I think you're crazy. Whatever, I don't care. You can contact us at charlottebatsbaseball@gmail.com, and I'll answer all your questions. I'm on there all the time. And like I said, agree, disagree, it's okay with us. We still love you guys. We want to thank our fans for our support, We want to thank Major League Baseball for this list that they want to put us on for expansion. And most of all, I want to thank you guys for having me on your program.
Well, Rick, we'll have you on again. You be well. I'll be in touch with you off air. And thanks for coming on this evening, sir.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate it.
Appreciate you, man. Rick Curti, of course, coming on, trying to bring baseball to Charlotte, North Carolina. Take a break, get Nick Anastos on. I know he's got a lot to say about the Super Bowl and going to get his thoughts on Tom Brady. Is he staying? Is he going? The rumor with John Gruden trying to bring him in to Oakland. All of that and some more. We're going to get back to some other stuff. I got to bring up Kobe because these people are crazy. And I'm going to get Big O and T's thoughts on that and get T's thoughts on Baseball Hall of Fame. We didn't get him on the line. We'll get it on the other side. It is the Bachelor News radio show.
Have you seen that new plastic coffee container? Did you know it actually absorbs aroma from the coffee? At Maxwell House, we think the aroma should stay where it belongs, in the coffee, not the container. Our steel can won't absorb our rich coffee aroma, and, unlike plastic, it's a perfect barrier against coffee's worst enemies, moisture and oxygen. So choose Maxwell House with the fresh steel can, and make every day good to the last drop.
Here we go.
Welcome back to the show. Thanks to Jim Williams. Thanks to Tom Donaldson. Thanks to Rick Curti, all coming on. It is the Bachelor News radio show on the Bachelor News Radio Network. And keep in mind, if you miss any part of the broadcast, you can go to our website, thebachelorpadnetwork.com, thebachelorpadnetwork.com. Also, I want to remind people, at the top of the hour, wherever you're listening, East Coast, West Coast, at the top of the hour, if you're not dialed in at 646-929-0130, you'll lose the live feed if we go past the top of the hour. So if you're online now, you need to dial in or you'll lose the live feed. Back to the phones. I bring in my good friend, longtime colleague from Anastos Media, and he's play-by-play voice for UMass Lowell basketball. He is Nick Anastos. Nick, appreciate you coming on, sir. I hope all is well.
I'm good, LA. How are you?
I'm good. I have to say quickly that, and we've been talking about this game. I picked the 49ers. I forgot what T and O and you picked, but I picked them because they run the football. They run the football. You got Bosa and all these guys up front that can stop the run. They get after the quarterback. That front four can do it by themselves. The back end was playing well. So all is well in the world. And then Kyle Shanahan reverts back to Patriots Atlanta when they were up 28-3, and he coaches not to lose. 22 carries in the entire game and running. I mean, what is that about? And so, give big ups to Mahomes and Williams, the running back, and Andy Reid. I'm happy for him and all of that. But because they were spectacular, if you give them the open, you see what happens. They've been doing it for a while now, especially in the playoffs. But if I'm a 49er player and fan, I'm upset. You got away from what got you there. He did that in the Ravens game. And he did that in the Super Bowl, of course, at Atlanta as well.
Yeah, and I was, at times anyway, saying that my biggest reservation about picking the Niners, and I finally came around to picking the Niners about an hour before kickoff after going back and forth for 2 weeks, was the Shanahan factor. People up here certainly remember that Atlanta Super Bowl. This is a guy who with a 28-3 lead with 3 minutes to go in that third quarter with the Falcons. Only ran the ball after that point a grand total of 9 times. What strikes me from last night is after they give up the second touchdown and Kansas City comes back within 3 at 20-17, he's got himself a 2nd and 5, a chance to run a little bit more clock. He had just gotten 5 on the ground with Mostert, and he decides to go back to the air. The pass gets batted down, the clock stops, and now it's a 3rd down and 5, and everybody in the world knows another pass is coming, and sure enough, it's a quick 3 and out. And the momentum at that point was clearly with Kansas City. So, I'm not saying he's a bad coach. He's not. In fact, he probably deserved Coach of the Year, given the turnaround from 4-12 to 13-3. But, my biggest hesitation with taking them was putting my trust back in Shanahan to protect the double-digit lead in the fourth quarter, and he couldn't do it.
But Nick, there's no rationale. You're saying he's a great, a good coach. There's no rationale. 2 minutes before plus, or a little less than 2 minutes in the first half, he doesn't trust his quarterback, so he tries to run the clock out. Late in the game, when you need to run the clock out, you putting the ball in the hands of your quarterback. That makes no sense to me at all.
I could understand the wanting to go into halftime. I can. Jimmy had thrown an interception earlier. I think he wanted to avoid that. As you said, didn't trust his quarterback. I think that's fair. And again, in the fourth quarter, I don't get it. I would have pounded it, and then pounded it again. 2nd and 5 would probably turn into 3rd and 2 or 3rd and 1, and I would stay on the ground there, stay with the lead, stay with the clock moving. But his same defense. He had the same defense after the Super Bowl loss with the Falcons. It was, we're not going to play to lose. We're going to stay aggressive, etc. But there's a certain generic script that coaches from the NFL on down, all the way down to Pee Wee, follow to protect the lead and close out a game, and that's especially with the Niner run game and how they had gotten there, how they had steamrolled over Green Bay. On the ground, it just doesn't make any sense. I think he outthought himself. I think his main emphasis was stay aggressive. But again, you're not using your biggest weapon, and that was was Mostert / that ground game to help you win a Super Bowl. You figured, or one would figure, that he had learned his lesson after, again, continuing to drop back Matt Ryan with that big lead against the Patriots. But he clearly didn't. And, Niner fans have to live with that. Now I watched the game last night with a longtime Niner fan, and his immediate reaction was not to blame Shanahan, and not to really blame anything in particular. Now, 24 hours later, if we had that same conversation, I wonder if he has any different feelings about it. But at least with that one particular fan that I was with yesterday, he was not quick to blame the coach. But again, I wonder how long that's going to last.
Yeah, giving more credit to Kansas City than I guess to blame San Francisco. And the one thing though, Pete Carroll outsmarted himself in another Patriots Super Bowl. When you have beast mode, run the damn ball. What is wrong with you? What are you tricking? Malcolm Butler was. I mean, what are you doing? And that's what he's doing. Why are you trying to do trickery when you got to the Super Bowl running the football? It doesn't make any sense. A lot was being said throughout the halftime and all that stuff, and the commercial that Brady did with he's in the tunnel and all that other stuff. And, now we're hearing rumors, and that's what they are because nobody really knows, but they're rumors that Gruden is reaching out. They're moving to Nevada and all this other stuff with the Raiders. How much do you see into that? Or do you still stand by the fact that Brady will be in a Patriot uniform next year or he'll retire?
I still see the scenario where he's on another team is a long shot. Although I would say that the odds are a little bit friendlier than they were, a couple weeks ago when we talked, at least in my mind. I still say he retires. I know there's another report out. The Patriots are willing to spend up to $30 million, which would have to be some kind of a cap dance, some kind of a maneuver to free up enough room. Otherwise, they really are sacrificing other pieces of the roster if, they have to pay all that towards the cap. Now, again, I'm not sure exactly how that would work. And again, this is obviously assuming that Brady's interested in coming back. But again, my money, I think, is still that he retires. The Gruden stuff is interesting. I think the fact that the Chargers let go of Phillip Rivers is interesting. And again, the report that the Patriots are willing to spend up to that amount of money, I think, is probably an accurate report. But again, I would say, my gut feeling still says that he retires. I may be wrong, and in fact, I was probably more confident with that statement a couple of weeks ago than I am now. Did I lose you, LA?
Yeah, Mac, I want to go to Tony T. Mac McLean. Go ahead, T.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yep.
We may have had this conversation before, Nick, but why is the NFL dead set on killing the running back?
Elaborate a little bit more. What do you mean with that?
Well, I just every year to me, especially in the postseason, the teams that run the ball better always wind up winning the Super Bowl. I think that's why the Niners were favored. I think that's why people looked at them maybe not as a prohibitive favorite, what have you, but we've seen it in instances where these guys get to the Super Bowl and they get cute and they literally lose the game because of that. And to me, this has been something that's been happening over the last few years where it's all about throwing. But when a team that wins the Super Bowl, it winds up being the team that runs the ball better. So to me, it's a mindset that's prevalent in the NFL, even with teams that run the ball. I think everybody went so crazy over the Ravens because they were run-based. Now Jackson proved that he could throw the ball out the backfield as well, but what is this whole thing of where you just want to just get away from the running game now?
I think it's driven by the league. I think it starts with the league and their desire to see more points. More points means more casual fans are tuned in, and it means more sponsorship money. And I think the way that the game has been legislated over the last 25 years backs that up. It's much more easier now to throw down the field and draw a pass interference call. Defensive backs are much more restricted now than they were 20, 25, even 15, 10 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And that's because, again, the NFL wants higher scoring games to draw in the casual fans. And for a lot of these offensive coordinators, these up-and-coming names who are trying to make names for themselves typically are involved with the passing game. Guys like Shanahan could run it, sure, but they do a lot of nifty reverses, and when he was in Atlanta, he had Matt Ryan as an MVP.
Mm-hmm.
Sean McVay, kind of the same thing, kind of a young, think outside the box guy. Let's throw it around a little bit. Obviously, they had Todd Gurley there as a centerpiece, but it just seems like this new breed of offensive coordinator types are evolving with the game, and the encouragement, if that's the right word, by the league to go ahead and throw and take advantage of some of these offensive-friendly rules. That being said, though, it seems to always come down to the basics when it gets to the big stage, and that's, can you win up front? Can you run the football? And can you drive your guy to the ground? Mm-hmm. So, whatever the trend is, whatever, the league wants to do to draw more eyeballs and thus draw more sponsorship money with the rules, et cetera, that's fine. But I think at least for now, it's always going to come back to those basic elements, those original elements of blocking and tackling. It's that simple. And the teams that do that well on the big stage is going to be the team that walks away with the trophy.
Even though they lost, I still think the Niners are going to be somebody we're going to have to reckon with. And of course, with the Chiefs, the core of that team is relatively young, with Mahomes and there. Are we looking at, I know it's a little premature, not so much a rematch, but do you feel like that these two teams are going to be perennial contenders barring injury, free agency over the next, say, 2-3 years?
Yes. Yes, the answer is yes. I think you can put both of them on the short list for, the time being. The NFL, of course, is a turnover league, as we know, probably the most so of 4 big ones. And that's by design. That I think is a good by design for the league. The way the rosters are set up, the cap availability, et cetera. So they've got 2 good organizations. Traditionally, the Chiefs and Niners are 2 winning franchises. Traditionally, the Chiefs hadn't won the big one in 50 years, but they certainly had been perennial contenders in the AFC for a long time, no matter who was on the sidelines. And then, this Niner defense is kind of the heart and soul there. Their offensive pieces are young. Deebo Samuel, did big things, I think, for himself last night by stepping up on a big stage. He had been quietly having a rookie year all year, but nobody really knew about it until last night. So, to answer your question, I think in the short term, both those 2 teams, should be in the playoff mix for the next 2, 3, 4 years.
And one last one. For us to say, for all intents and purposes, like you said, Brady does retire. So who's on the center opening day for the Patriots?
Good question. It's a good question. Jarrett Stidham is the backup right now. He was a rookie last year. He threw 4 passes, I think, the entire way in a blowout against the Jets. So nobody really knows how good or how ready he is. And frankly, his name has not been mentioned as much as I would think it would be. I think a lot of people here are still counting on Brady to come back.
Right.
And that may very, very well be the case. But if he were to actually retire, that would catch a lot of people, at least fans, by surprise, no matter what they're saying publicly. So the answer would be we'd have to find out a lot about Jarrett Stidham between now and the first preseason game in August. Or, do the Patriots have some kind of a plan B where they go out, get a short-term veteran, and then draft another quarterback in April? A guy like Fitzpatrick, I think, would be a good fit. He could probably run any offense in the book. He seems to always have sneaky success on bad teams. You put him with a good team for the first time in a while, and maybe that's your gap year answer, your bridge year answer, so to speak. If again they don't think Stidham is ready after just 1 year of watching from the sidelines. So I don't know. Again, if Brady's back, that answers itself. If not, I think we've got a lot to learn, so to speak, between now and the end of next summer.
Absolutely. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, and I think too, I think that if he retires, I think that scenario, the other scenario you said, Nick, where they bring in a veteran to bridge the gap, and then they draft another quarterback. But we'll see. A couple of quick ones in our 2-minute warning here. When you look at the dynamics of the league, and certainly we've had conversations over the years about the black quarterback and everything else. Do you think that Pat Mahomes who's the prototypical quarterback that you think that franchises are going to go after? I mean, Pat runs a little bit, but he runs, when he needs to run. Lamar's is by design. You look at a Russell Wilson, again, scrambling out of the pocket, very, very methodical about it. If a franchise is looking at bringing in a new kid, a new quarterback, what type of prototypical quarterback will it be in the NFL?
I still think it's size first. And I may be a little outdated with saying that, but I still think that scouts and organizations, front offices, et cetera, are still going to look for that 6'5", 6'6" quarterback with a big arm. I just do. I just think physically that they still have an advantage. You're seeing guys who are that big that are mobile as well. Cam Newton, when he was healthy, 6'5", could scramble, could run, could lower the shoulder. Josh Allen in Buffalo comes to mind. He's 6'5", 6'6". He can move as well.
Ryan Tannehill is a big dude too. Yeah.
Right. Tannehill's 6'8". So I think the odds still favor the bigger guy. And again, it seems like as we move more and more into the future, that combination of size and speed is not as elusive as it was maybe a decade ago. These guys are still the exception to the rule. The quarterbacks you name, the guys that are 6 feet, 6'1", maybe 6'2" in cleats, like a Mahomes, like a Jackson, like a Drew Brees, those guys, like a Russell Wilson, those guys are still the exception to the rule. And the rule is in the NFL, unofficially, of course, that you got to be at least 6'3", 6'4", preferably 6'4", 6'5", to play the position. Size.
Yeah, and you're right. I mean, you look at those guys. It's going to be an interesting off season in terms of all these free agents. You mentioned the Cam Newton and some others that are out there, and I think it all starts with Brady and what happens there, and it's just going to kind of go from there. Final question for you. I've looked at Nevada. The odds have Kansas City, Baltimore. I want to make sure I got them right. San Fran, the Saints, and Patriots as the top 5 teams, respectively, in terms of the chances to win next year. Who should be on that list, and who do you think should be the odds-on favorite?
I don't look at that list until after the draft, because I think the draft is so big. It's the biggest impactor, amongst the 4 major sports. And then, of course, free agency as well, as you just mentioned. So, in between now and the draft, Vegas is just basically, looking at what happened this year, and you can't make an accurate read until you get a more accurate look at the roster. And rosters are going to look totally different, 32 teams across the league between now and, the beginning of summer, the beginning of OTAs, et cetera. So ask me that again come June, and I'll have a much better answer.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, but I will say, those top 5 teams have shown, especially now with San Fran kind of getting back on the block, that they're going in the right direction. They have that structure, that administration that's going to keep them in the mix for quite some time. So we'll see. Nick, as always, be well, man. Thanks for coming on. We'll talk with you next week, man. I appreciate you.
Sounds good, LA. Thank you.
Thank you, man. Nick Anastos from Anastos Media talking some NFL. Take a break. I'm going to come back and wrap up with Tony T. Mac McClain and Orlando Hughes. I want to talk briefly about Kobe as well, because I think that there's a lot of people who want to bring up side things in terms of Kobe. Not Kobe the player and where he fits and all that, but Kobe, the situation that took place and how it ties into the lack of respect, rest in peace, of the black athlete. Take a break, come back on the Bachelor News Radio show. Stay tuned. Welcome back to the show. Thanks to all of our guests, Jim Williams, Tom Donaldson, Rick Curti, Nick Anastos, and of course my good friends Tony T. Mac McClain and Orlando Hughes. See, before I kind of wrap up with Kobe and all of that, and we go briefly to the Super Bowl stuff we were talking about earlier, I did want to get your thoughts on baseball and how they kind of first we already said that sort of the RBI thing has been a failure. The RBI program that Major League Baseball puts in place to try to recruit, if you will, African American players, and certainly if we see us, maybe we come back more to the game. I think it's been a failure. You touch on that, and then again, you were on hold. Larry Walker, I compare to sort of a Harold Baines with a lot of hits and a lot of stuff, but I don't know if they're Hall of Fame more so Hall of really good or really good hitters. I mean, Tony Gwynn was a balanced guy. He could play defense, he ran the bases, and arguably, like I said, I think he's the greatest hitter of all time. But, Baines was a hitter, wasn't known for his defense. He did a lot of DHing and stuff later. And Larry Walker, the same thing, a lot of hits, a lot of home runs, a launching pad in Colorado, certainly more so than Montreal. But, is he a Hall of Fame? Is he a Hall of Famer? And does baseball get it right?
To me, I don't know why people go after Baines. I mean, to me, the guy was, Harold Baines right now would make a bunch of money right now because he's a consistent RBI guy. He had his power, and yes, he spent the majority of his career at the DH. But think of all the players that are Edgar Martinez, another professional hitter, just
right.
Very deserving. And as great as Frank Thomas was, Frank Thomas spent basically the last 2/3 of his career as a DH as well. Now,
good point.
Baines' numbers may not be comparable to them, but I think because of his consistency, and it's funny how certain folks want they want to punish certain guys for being a compiler, but there are other players that are in the Hall of Fame who were compilers as well. Walker was a great player before he got to Colorado. True. I'm not gonna beat him up because he spent the majority of his career in Colorado. That's an easy out. But see, unfortunately, we're in this thing now with all the Hall of Fames. It's more so, how do we keep you out than why do we put you in? And baseball has been the lead dog on that, because they find more ways to keep guys out than to celebrate them. Everyone talked about how you had the one person that didn't vote for Jeter unanimous, but you remember, your boy Gwynn wasn't unanimous. Cal Ripken and Tony Gwynn got in the same year, and neither one of them were unanimous. Now, I have always felt that, when anyone got 100, they keep using the old argument of, well, that's saying he's the greatest ball player of all time. No, it isn't. It's saying for that year, he was the most obvious eligible player on the ballot.
But how do you get Walker in and not a Rock Reigns? How do you not have I think Rick made a good point.
Reigns is in already.
Right, but I'm saying, they tried to make it a debate about why he should be in the Hall of Fame. And to me, he had a greater career than Larry Walker. And then what about Fred McGriff? Fred McGriff was one of the best hitters of his era.
I mean, I'm not arguing with you. I agree with you. But see, baseball has backed themselves into that, because, to be honest with you, there are a bunch of players that I think off the top of your head you say to yourself, it should be unanimous. But
right.
This is baseball shooting themselves in the foot and then getting upset that their foot hurts. Because how can you not? How does Cal Ripken not get 100%? How does Tony Gwynn not get 100%? I mean, for Christ's sake, how does Babe Ruth and Ty Cobb not get 100%? But see, that's the thing. They tried to make this more exclusive than it should be, and now they want to, and now they're having now it's more of trying to keep guys out than putting them in.
Right.
And that's the problem. And see, now you see where Clemens and Bonds, their votes picked up a little bit. Now next year's quote unquote class is supposedly somewhat weak. Your big name guys next year are Tim Hudson and the first time guys on the ballot. Tim Hudson is one. I forget who the other person is. And again, this is no slight to Tim Hudson. Barry Zito is also eligible next year as well. Now, let's face it. At one point in their career, we thought that they were possibly Hall of Fame material. Now they're arguably not. But see, it goes more with this narrative of how they keep guys out than they keep guys in. Because, see, I don't have a problem with Marvin Miller getting in, but Curt Flood deserves to get in there a little bit quicker, because without Curt Flood, Marvin Miller would not have had the opportunity to do what he did. But see, again, that's baseball's messing it up. The fact that Dennis Eckersley got in before Lee Smith, I have a problem with that. Lee Smith, my thing is, there are guys that are Hall of Famers the day that their careers ended. Just because, Jim Rice got in on his last year and Larry Walker got in on his last year doesn't make them lesser Hall of Famers. They're Hall of Famers as far as I'm concerned. But see, this is baseball's arrogance coming back to bite them in the foot. Now they want to get into this narrative of, it's not the Hall of Fame anymore, it's the Hall of Very Good. This narrative started a few years back with Bill James, when you started seeing a lot of the Negro League players finally getting their due, and then all of a sudden the narrative was, baseball's watered down. See, again, it's playing into that it's playing into that prejudice because, they're willing to put in a Walker, but they're still, they're still bitching about Harold Baines. Harold Baines is a Hall of Famer. Live with it. If you don't like it, then don't go to Cooperstown.
Right. All I'm saying, I don't know if Orlando's on. All I'm saying though is when you have, to me, two guys in the same franchise, in Reigns and Walker, and they bitched and moaned about Reigns. He did it, but he got it. But I'm saying though, but Walker, it's in terms of mainstream society, it's like he's a shoo-in. Oh, this Larry Walker. Remember Berman used to always say it in French and stuff.
Actually, he wasn't, because this was his last year on the ballot.
But I'm saying when he gets in, what I'm saying?
But LA, at the end of the day, it's semantics, because my thing is they're both in and they're both deserving. You see, I believe with all four of the Hall of Famers, with all the four Hall of Fames, there's at least 30, maybe even 40 guys. Matter of fact, myself, a few other colleagues who you've had on the show, we put together a book where we talked about it for pro football, mostly the HBCU players, where you can go through every decade and say to yourself, there's at least 5-6 guys that you say to yourself, why aren't they in? Baseball, baseball is that, but see, baseball's racial double standard always comes back to bite them in the ass. And I think, I look at it like this: if Alan Trammell is in, how can his Keystone buddy not be in?
Exactly.
They literally and figuratively go hand in hand. Fred McGriff has, he's never been accused of steroids. He was a consistent 30, 90, 30, 100 guy his career, but he didn't get to 500. And it's like, let's put it this way. Guys don't play their careers to be Hall of Famers, but when they put up Hall of Fame type numbers, then everybody wants to be like, well, it's not this, it's not this. And then see, again, it goes back to they focus more on what they didn't do as opposed to what they did do. I think the ultimate argument was Nolan Ryan. 7 no-hitters, 5,000 strikeouts, but people had, he had a lot of walks too. What the hell?
Yeah, and his record was mediocre. His record was average at best. But Terry Bradshaw got in the NFL Hall of Fame, and he had a average record too. So I think baseball. You know why I think baseball gets it wrong? Because they didn't get a hold of what all the sports are doing, which is illegal stuff, steroids. If they had gotten a hold of that, they don't like Barry Bonds anyway, so that might be a bad example. But if they had gotten a better hold and control of that and outed it and did what they needed to do, or swept it under the rug like the NFL does all the time, then I think that their Hall of Fame would be more credible, as if, say, NBA and NFL or whatever.
Well, look, like I said, to me, they're all four are flawed, because I know if I sat down, I could do a list from each Hall of Fame. I could do a list of about 10, possibly 15 guys that should be in all the that just should be in the various Hall of Fames. We're talking football, baseball, basketball, and hockey. There's various guys to me. So now baseball. It's hard to say if baseball is the most egregious. I call out baseball because I think because of their racial double standard and the utter arrogance of their voters.
Right.
And see, I think the guy who didn't vote for Derek Jeter should be outed, or gal. I think they should be outed and say, why didn't you vote him? Why did you not vote? Why did you not vote him in? And he will give you some cock and bull story about, whatever and everything, but he's not going to, that's the problem. Baseball has dug this hole, and then but they're the very ones that are bitching about the hole. Shut up.
Right. I wanted to ask you before we go about the Kobe Bryant, in the sense that we mourn his death, and certainly we should be praying for his family and friends and all those people who died in that helicopter. But there's a portion of people who want to put blame on Kobe and those who decided to get in a helicopter. First of all, he's done it all the time, not just to the Laker games for years, but taking his kid to practice. Number one. Number two, he had clearance from the pilot and the landing team in terms of even going out. But now we want to. Kobe brought this on himself because it was foggy. He should have never done this. Kobe this, Kobe that. Right, and so my point is that
in LA, can we just go ahead and talk about the elephant in the room, the Me Too movement?
Right.
Look, folks want to go after him because of the Colorado incident, and they want to basically But see, here's the thing that they miss, and this is the plight of the black man, whether it be the black athlete or what have you. Now, we all know how everything played out and went down and everything with what happened in Colorado, and Kobe was wrong for it and everything like that. That being said, because of his public persona, his wife knows about it. Gianna knows about it. Now, maybe the younger kids may not know about it, but see, because he was his firstborn and because of the relationship they had, I'm sure they had to sit down and say, look, I messed up real badly. And that's something I'm going to have to live with it. He never ran from it. He never whatever with it. But here's the thing. And here's the thing I think the Me Too folks miss, and the folks who want to want to just make him, he's not a ball player, he's a rapist. Okay, sure, I get it. And no one's sitting here condoning rape. But here's the thing, and I don't think this is sugarcoating it when it's being said and when it's whatever. Because of what happened, I think that is why he has the relationship he has with Gianna. I think every day he looks into her eyes, he saw the mistakes he made. He has to live with that he had to live with that for the rest of his life, no matter what. And there's going to be people, no matter what, that were never going to forgive him for that, understandably. But here's the thing: we're a forgiving society. We always talk about how we're a spiritual society and all this other stuff. But a lot of times when it comes forward with a black man, none of his sins will ever be absolved, no matter what. Absolutely not. Will not absolve him of any of his sins. Now, you can say this is political or whatever, but whatever. We got a guy sitting at 1600 that basically wallows in his gropingness. But people will justify his wickedness. At the end of the day, both Kobe and our president are rapists. If you really want to get technical with it, they're both rapists. They're both rapists.
Not only that, Bill Clinton was forgiven for what he did.
But see, my point is, whether you like Kobe or not, whether you're a fan of his or not, his relationship with his daughter is to me very commendable, especially when you consider what he did, what his stupid act was. Because again, I think what Gianna was he had to live with that every day of his life. He had to live with it every day of his life. And I think I'm not going to do the whole thing. It made him a better person. It made him a better man. No, I'm not going to go that far. I'm not going to do all that. But Gianna was a constant reminder of that misstep. That marriage that he had with Vanessa is a constant reminder of that misstep. And the fact that he worked hard to take care of them babies. The fact that that those babies are going to be taken care of for the rest of their life, God bless them, monetarily. They won't have a want for the rest of their life. The fact that he was an advocate for women's sports and the WNBA and whatever. Now, again, this is not to absolve him of what happened that night in Colorado. But at some point, you have to realize that people do, change. Kobe did become and was trying to become better from that. Did he reach that? That's not a question of us mere mortals. He's having that conversation with I'm pretty sure he's having that conversation or has had that conversation with the Almighty once he, passed through. That's not a conversation for us to say yay or nay to. I'm not going to be the one that says, hey, he's going to burn in hell for it, or no, he's been resolved of it. No. But see, in this society where a black man, no matter what his deeds can be or whatever, he will always be looked upon as a demon or worse, no matter what he tries to do. This is what and a lot and the sad thing is he was getting it from a lot of other black women, and that's the real tragedy here in that sense.
Yeah.
Because he's dead now. What
right.
What are you going to gain by bashing him now that he is dead? That's if you want to talk about cowardly, you can't get more cowardly than talking about the dead.
And let them mourn, Vanessa and the family. Let them mourn, and Jelly Bean and Pam and all of them. Let them mourn, man. Let them bury their dead and be done with it.
I even saw stuff where, I don't know if you saw the stuff Friday, the Memorial Friday, before the Laker game.
Right.
And you have people saying, there goes LeBron putting himself in front of everything. And I'm like, Jesus effing Christ, man, really? He just lost a friend, a pal, and you're saying he's making it all about, come on. This is, our society sometimes really just, is full of what, man. Because it's funny, and again, this is not a shot at you, but I have to say it. They went so far as to say Bobby Mercer did more to mourn Thurman Munson than LeBron did to mourn Kobe, because LeBron made it about himself. And I thought that was the most incredible stretch you could ever go to try to make a point with somebody like that. I'm like, my God, man.
Yeah, well, again, it's about the color. That's why I said, even in death, we can't get any peace. We can't get peace or credit, and even in death, man, they coming at us. So, yeah, I agree with that. T, we'll leave it there, man. I appreciate you as always, bro. We will talk to you next week. Thank you, man.
All right, talk to you, man.
Yeah, man. Tony T. Mac McLean. If you missed any part of our broadcast, make sure you go to our website, the Bachelor News, the Bachelor Pad Radio Network, the Bachelor with a T, network.com. We thank you. Thanks to all of our guests, Tom Donaldson, Jim Williams, Rick Cordy, Nick Anastos, and my two co-hosts, Orlando Big O Hughes and Tony T. Mac McLean. Follow us on Facebook at Pad Nation, Pad Nation, the number 2 on Twitter, LinkedIn, You can hear the podcast at thebachelorpadnetwork.com, on TuneIn.com. Follow us on Instagram. You can hear it on iTunes. Anywhere that you can pull up a podcast, we will be. Enjoy. We will talk with you tomorrow, 7 o'clock Eastern this time, on the Bachelor News Radio Show on the Bachelor News Radio Network.